This is Bruce Dixon for Black Agenda Report. Yesterday, with less than 2 hours remaining before the scheduled execution of Troy Anthony Davis in Georgia, the U.S. Supreme Court intervened in the case. Despite the fact that 7 of 9 witnesses against Davis have recanted their testimony, lower courts have thus far refused him a new trial, thus raising the question of whether innocence matters at all. We asked Troy Anthony Davis's sister, Martina Correria.
Okay, innocence matters. Why is that in the conversation?
Because the court system is telling us that recanted testimony is not as important as trial testimony. And what's happening is that my brother Troy is being denied access to the courts because they're saying that innocence, if you got a fair trial at the beginning, it doesn't matter whether or not you're innocent or guilty, that they don't have to hear new evidence. So that's why our campaign about innocence matters means that innocence always matters, not just at trial, but at any time when someone comes to recant testimony that proves that someone is innocent, you should not be killing them.
Last Friday, when 1,000 supporters of Troy Davis marched to Atlanta's historic Ebenezer Baptist Church to pray and demand justice for Troy Davis, we caught up with Matthew Cardinale. Cardinale is a respected Atlanta journalist, the founder and editor of Atlanta Progressive News at www.atlantaprogressivenews.org, which has reported extensively on the Troy Davis case for more than a year.
The Board of Pardon and Paroles has already weighed in and stated that, that they apparently don't feel that he has a case. We don't really know why they made the decision that they did. Although, as Atlanta Progressive News has reported, Martina Correria, the sister of Troy Davis, who was in the hearing, said that she got the sense that a lot of the board members were actually troubled by a lot of the claims that were made by witnesses who have recanted, and not just that they were recanting, but that they're also claiming that they were pressured by the GBI, by prosecutors into, saying that that they saw Troy Davis kill this person, and so that was probably a bit disconcerting for a lot of these parole board members, given that 3 of them are former GBI and former prosecutors. So that was the sense that they had, but otherwise I just don't see how you can overlook and not even answer to 7 out of 9 witnesses recanting. I mean, it's just so glaring, and I think the unfortunate effect of this is that it will, if he is executed, it will lessen everyone's confidence in the Board of Paroles, in the court system, in the entire criminal justice system, and in the death penalty altogether. So I think that's what's at stake and what the state actually has to lose in this situation. But I just encourage people to go to atlantaprogressivenews.com, which is the website where I edit, and we've been covering this for over a year and a half. To be honest, the corporate media has been a dismal failure on this issue. About a year ago, when he was also near execution, when the Board of Paroles issued a stay while the Georgia Supreme Court could look into it, we were really the only news agency that was talking about the witness recantations. And you would just see in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the corporate television stations and newspapers, they would say, Troy Davis is about to be executed. He killed a cop. The cop's name was Mark McPhail, and he was, X years old, and blah, blah, blah.
That's what I was going to ask you. When you see the TV coverage of this, they don't mention anything about witness recantations.
No, I mean, it's typically just like you would see any other execution or pending execution that they cover. Particularly the television stations. I mean, they'll run a 1-minute clip. The media were reporting, he killed this cop, unproblematically, and that in the media we have a responsibility to treat a claim that comes from government agencies or officials as a claim and not necessarily a fact, because we've seen time and time again where government actors will say something and then it turns out not to be true. So I mean, and shouldn't be very shocking, but corporate media agencies have a tendency to say Troy Davis killed police officer Mark McPhail. Not he was convicted, he was alleged, which is a slight difference. But, they did the same thing with Katherine Johnston here in Atlanta, the 92-year-old woman who was shot about a year ago. In the first few days of that coverage, they were saying, oh, well, she was dealing marijuana out of her apartment. Not she's accused of, and we later learned out that the real criminals were the police in that matter. But
what should people who don't want to see this go down right now do?
They need to be calling the governor. They need to be calling the parole board. They need to go to Amnesty's website and fax letters to the parole board. They can go to troyanthonydavis.org. They can send a text message, the word Troy, to 90999. That's 90999. But we need as many people as possible faxing letters to the parole board, and they can go to troyanthonydavis.org. And on this site, it'll just say actions, and they can just click, type the information, and send a letter. But make phone calls, call their legislators, let them know that innocence always matters.
Thank you.
Martina Correria.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As it stands today, the Supreme Court has only agreed to consider whether it will take up the case of Troy Anthony Davis. This decision will be made within the next week or so. Should the Supreme Court decline to take up his case, the ruling of lower courts and the state Supreme Court of Georgia will stand, and the state of Georgia can be expected to set a speedy execution date. But if the Supreme Court does take up his case, its considerations will add anywhere from several weeks to several months to the life of Troy Anthony Davis, as they determine whether evidence of innocence which surfaces after an initial trial is grounds for overthrowing a death sentence, essentially whether innocence matters at all. For his part, it is reported that Troy Anthony Davis was calm and composed in the hours and minutes leading up to his last-minute stay of execution. He remains hopeful and optimistic and grateful for the support he has received from people of conscience in Georgia, across the country, and around the world. As always, the Atlanta Progressive News at www.atlantaprogressivenews.org remains the best and most reliable source for ongoing breaking news about the case of Troy Anthony Davis and much more. This is Bruce Dixon for Black Agenda Report.